There are moments in history when the veil thins, not for all, but for those with eyes to see and hearts prepared to remember. We are living in such a moment now, a moment when reality is no longer a singular thread, but unraveling into many. Like a prism held to the light, refracting a once unified beam into countless divergent paths, humanity stands at a subtle but seismic threshold, a spiritual bifurcation so immense it eludes ordinary perception. Some feel it as a quiet unease, others as a mysterious calling. A split is occurring not of land or nation, but of consciousness itself. You may have felt it, the growing distance between those who question and those who obey, between those who feel the rhythms of a deeper truth vibrating through their being, and those who remain wrapped in the comfortable anesthesia of illusion. There is no judgment here, only observation, the gentle recognition of a quiet sorting that has already begun. Some awaken, while others forget. Some rise into remembrance, others sink further into the dream. This is not merely a cultural shift, this is metaphysical. Civilizations rise and fall, but what is happening now is not just historical, it is initiatory. A great transition is underway, not declared by governments or announced by headlines, but whispered in symbols, synchronicities, and dreams. Those with awakened inner senses have begun to see the signs. The air feels different. Time bends in strange ways. People leave your life not with a bang, but with a fading frequency. And perhaps you've noticed that your own thoughts are no longer just your own, but part of something wider, something ancient, as if an unseen intelligence were reactivating a dormant blueprint inside you. Long ago, in the firelit shadows of another age, a man sat with ink-stained hands and eyes that saw beyond time. Nostradamus, a name reduced to tabloid headlines and parlor tricks in modern times. But his true essence was something far deeper. He was not a prophet of doom, but a scribe of divergence. His quatrains did not simply predict disasters, they encoded a cosmic rhythm, pointing toward a moment when humanity would be faced with a choice so subtle, most would miss it. And yet, he saw it. The splitting, the parting of paths, the rising of the awakened, and the descent of the forgotten. He spoke of veiled wars and hidden alignments, of celestial conjunctions and psychic upheavals, of our time when the soul of humanity would be weighed, and each individual would align with the frequency they had cultivated within. It is not punishment, it is resonance. As the earth shifts energetically, magnetically, spiritually, so too must the beings upon her surface. No one is left behind by a cruel hand. Each follows the path magnetized by their own inner truth. And so, the awakened begin to see through the illusion, like fish who suddenly remember the ocean was never their limit. While others, still bound by the gravity of fear, tighten their grip on a fading reality, unaware that the structures they cling to are crumbling beneath their very fingers. To witness this unfolding is to remember why you are here, not to escape this moment, but to embody it, to be a torchbearer in a time of splitting, to awaken others not by force, but by frequency, by becoming a living resonance of remembrance. If you feel the truth in these words not as information, but as activation, then you are part of this grand unfolding. And I invite you now to journey deeper with me. Let us walk together through the echoes of prophecy, the science of the soul, and the sacred path of the awakened. If this message resonates, like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, not as an act of support, but as a signal to the universe that you are ready to remember, to explore, to activate what lies sleeping within. To understand the great split Nostradamus foresaw, we must move beyond history books and tabloid mysticism and into the mechanics of the soul. This is not a prophecy in the linear sense. It is a metaphysical inevitability, long encoded into the architecture of time. Humanity's divergence is not just a crisis of belief, it is a crisis of frequency. And like all things in the universe, frequency follows law. All life moves according to vibration. From the spinning of galaxies to the rhythm of your own heartbeat, everything dances to the silent music of creation. What you think, what you feel, what you choose, it all creates a signature, a tone. And in this era of accelerated energy, the time lag between thought and reality is collapsing. What was once hidden is now seen. What was once delayed is now instant. We are entering an age where your inner resonance determines your outer reality. And so, the separation begins not imposed by some external judgment, but by the invisible magnetics of truth. The law of vibration tells us that all matter is energy in motion. The law of resonance teaches that like attracts like. The law of mentalism reminds us that the universe itself is mind a dream projected by consciousness. When these truths are woven together, they form a sobering realization. Your reality, your experience, even your fate, is not random. It is created by the frequency you emit. And in a world that is rapidly quickening, you no longer have the luxury of maintaining a fragmented field. You must either harmonize with the new earth or remain tethered to the old. There is no in-between anymore. This is the metaphysical backbone of the split. Two timelines diverging not in space, but in vibration. One is dense, recursive, synthetic. It is marked by dependency, fear, and the outsourcing of power. The other is light-filled, sovereign, expansive. It honors the soul's primacy, the divine intelligence of nature, and the return to original memory. The awakened begin to attune to this higher rhythm, shedding layers of false identity like snakeskin in the sun. The forgotten sink deeper into artificial constructs, echo chambers, and borrowed narratives, convinced they are progressing, even as their inner world dims. And yet this is not punishment, this is nature. Just as water separates into ice or vapor based on temperature, so too does consciousness separate based on frequency. Nostradamus knew this. His quatrains spoke in veiled metaphors of fire from the heavens, great divisions, unseen wars, and the rise of a people unmarked by old systems. He saw not just events, but vibrational shifts, cloaked in the language of his time. For what he described was not merely geopolitical, it was spiritual. The split is not coming. It has begun. It began in the quiet moments when a soul chose authenticity over approval, when one turned off the noise and listened inward, when one questioned a system that had long gone unquestioned. These are the subtle acts of rebellion that mark the awakened. Not loud, not violent, but revolutionary in essence. For in a world ruled by illusion, clarity is an act of divine defiance. This is the essence of awakening. Not to gather more information, but to shed the distortions that obscure your true light. To remember that you are not your name, your title, or your trauma, but a fractal of the infinite, wearing a temporary mask. And once enough souls begin to remember this, truly remember, not just conceptually, they create a morphogenic field, a resonance that lifts others by proximity alone. The new earth is not built by force. It is summoned by frequency. And so, what Nostradamus saw was not an apocalypse of fire and brimstone, but a metaphysical exodus, a quiet exodus from the matrix of illusion into the kingdom within. A parting of energies so complete that though we may still walk the same streets, speak the same words, and breathe the same air, we are no longer in the same world. One path spirals inward and upward, the other outward and downward. Both are real, both are honored, but only one leads home. Long before satellites circled the skies and quantum physics whispered truths to curious minds, the ancients spoke in stories, not just to entertain, but to encode. Myth was their science. Symbol was their map. and the soul understood what the rational mind could not, that stories carry signatures of remembrance. And so, to grasp the meaning behind humanity's great splitting as Nostradamus glimpsed it through the veil, we must turn not to headlines, but to archetypes. There is an old tale, whispered through time and mirrored in every sacred text, of two worlds born from one. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it is the weighing of the heart, feather, or stone. In the Gnostic scriptures, it is the division between the archonic illusion and the realm of light. In Norse mythology, it is Ragnarok, not merely an ending, but a rebirth into a new vibratory domain. In all, the story repeats: a great test, a great forgetting, and a great choosing. These stories weren't fiction. They were prophecy encoded in parable messages from earlier epochs, carried like seeds through the winds of time, to be understood only when the collective was ready. And now, the soil of awareness is fertile. The myths begin to awaken. Picture, if you will, two Earths. They orbit the same star, but one grows dim while the other glows ever brighter. One is heavy with noise, artificial light, and spiritual amnesia. The other hums with organic life, crystalline thought, and soul recognition. These Earths are not physical places, but energetic realities nested within the same realm, yet worlds apart. You don't leave one and enter the other by foot, you phase shift by frequency. It is a migration of the soul, not the body. In his cryptic quatrains, Nostradamus described great divisions, false suns, silent wars, and the rise of the new city. Many have attempted to decode these lines with linear logic, failing to grasp that he was painting in symbols, not syllables. The false sun is the artificial light of illusion, digital distraction, manufactured truth, synthetic experience. The new city is not a place of stone and steel, but a field of consciousness emerging from the ashes of the old. The division he spoke of is not war in the way men understand it. It is a splitting of the veil, a rift in perception where one path spirals into sovereignty and the other into systemic submission. The forgotten, those still ensnared by illusion, are not evil, nor lost forever. They are asleep inside a dream of themselves, a dream fed by repetition, fear, and the seduction of comfort. They believe they are free, while unknowingly acting out the script of a world that has no interest in their awakening. Their dreams are curated, their fears are manufactured, and yet, deep within, their soul still pulses waiting. The awakened, meanwhile, are not superior. They are simply remembering, not all at once, and not without resistance. But something inside them burns a hunger that cannot be fed by surface pleasures or status. They begin to see symbols in ordinary places, feel energy where others feel emptiness, and trust a voice inside them that speaks not in words, but in knowing. This voice pulls them toward truth, even when it shatters the identity they've carefully built. In mystical teachings, the moment of divergence is often described as the great choice. It is the inner moment when the soul must decide whether to serve the false self or the eternal self, whether to cling to the world it was programmed to believe in or surrender to the mystery of who it really is. This choice echoes across lifetimes, lifelines, and soul lines. It is the axis around which the human story turns. And so, Nostradamus, in his cloaked language, was not warning of a single day or cataclysmic event. He was marking the point on the soul's spiral where the Earth's inhabitants would begin to self-sort, some into remembrance, others deeper into forgetfulness, a sorting not by judgment, but by resonance. Those aligned with truth, raw, unglamorous, radiant, would begin to rise. Those resisting it, clinging to the mirage, would fall into deeper loops of control, distraction, and external dependence. The two Earths are now overlapping, visible to those with awakened sight, imperceptible to those asleep. Like a dreamer standing in the dream, unaware that the alarm is ringing. One Earth is being built in silence, in sacred acts, in private healings, in humble awakenings. The other earth is unraveling, louder each day, flashing its chaos like lightning, not to punish, but to purge. This story is not written in the stars, it is written in you, in your choices, your presence, your willingness to see and be seen. You are both the reader and the ink. You are the myth and the mythmaker. If the splitting of humanity is not a theatrical rapture or grand spectacle of fire from the heavens, but rather an intimate shift in vibration, then the question becomes, how do we live in this time of dual earths? How does one walk the subtle road between illusion and remembrance while surrounded by a world that often worships the forgetting? The answer, like all great truths, is paradoxical. For though this shift feels cosmic, echoing through astrology, prophecy, and quantum fields, its gateway is breathtakingly simple. It lives in how you wake up each day, in the quality of your attention, in whether you choose distraction or devotion. Every act, no matter how small, becomes either a brick in the world of the awakened or a shadow cast in the world of the forgotten. To begin, presence must become your currency. In the forgotten world, attention is harvested, bought, sold, and manipulated through fear, outrage, and glittering illusion. But for those awakening, attention becomes sacred. It is no longer squandered on endless scrolls or empty conversations. It is reclaimed, refined, and directed inward towards silence, toward breath, toward the invisible thread connecting all things. This is not retreat from the world, but a return to reality. Nostradamus saw what happens when humanity refuses this return. He foresaw a future where many would no longer know how to be still, how to listen, how to dream outside the machines. In this world, anxiety becomes the norm. Connection is simulated. Depth is feared. But in the split reality now unfolding, you are offered another option: to re-enter the temple of your own being. To treat your thoughts as spells, your emotions as messengers, your body as a compass. And what of relationships, those tender bridges between souls? This splitting, while beautiful in its cosmic implications, can be deeply painful in its human expression. You may find yourself drifting from those once close, not out of judgment or superiority, but because your resonance has changed. Conversations that once felt alive may now echo with hollowness. The things you cannot unknow, they change you, and so there is grieving. But also a new tribe, waiting just beyond the veil of fear, aligned not by preference but by purpose. Work, too, becomes alchemical. The question is no longer, what do I do to survive? But, what do I create to serve? This doesn't always mean quitting your job or becoming a healer overnight. It means infusing whatever you touch with presence, intention, and truth. Even in the forgotten world, there are cracks of light nurses who touch with soul, engineers who build with care, artists who embed frequencies in form. The awakened do not escape the world. They transmute it, one sacred act at a time. Even the way you consume becomes part of your frequency signature. What you eat, read, watch, these are not neutral choices. They are energetic contracts. Every time you ingest something, you are saying, let this become part of me. This doesn't mean dogmatic purity. It means reverent awareness. It means choosing information, nourishment, and entertainment that strengthens the signal of your truth, not dulls it. In this sense, awakening is less about seeking light and more about ceasing to consume what dims it. And then there is stillness. The forgotten fear silence. It threatens their identity. But for the awakened, silence is sanctuary. It is where the false self dissolves and the soul speaks clearly. In these moments, you will feel the two earths most vividly. The noise will try to pull you back into fear, urgency, division. But the other path, subtle, luminous, undemanding, invites you home. In this quiet, you begin to hear the deeper rhythm, You remember that your life is not random, that your presence here, now, is no accident. Perhaps most importantly, the way you navigate challenge determines your alignment. In the world of the forgotten, suffering is punishment. In the world of the awakened, it is refinement. When chaos comes, and it will, the awakened pause. They ask, "What is this showing me?" Not, "Why is this happening to me?" They do not bypass pain with toxic light. They enter it, transmute it, and emerge more whole. This doesn't make them invincible. It makes them sovereign. This is the integration. Subtle, soulful, unglamorous. Not a parade of miracles, but a pilgrimage of choices. You begin to notice the difference between reaction and response, between urgency and intuition, between stimulation and sensation. You begin to see how everything external is a mirror of the internal, the news, the weather, even the behavior of strangers. All of it a feedback loop reflecting the frequency you hold. And you begin to live not from the mind alone, but from the soul. The mind asks, "Is it logical?" The soul asks, "Is it true?" The mind fears the unknown. The soul is born of it. To walk the path of the awakened is to let the soul lead, and the mind, once terrified of surrender, becomes its greatest servant. This is how the split unfolds, not in great explosions or sudden vanishing acts, but in thousands of unseen moments where one soul chooses remembrance while another retreats into forgetting. And as more remember, the gravitational field shifts. The earth itself responds. Nature opens. The old systems begin to crumble, not from rebellion, but from irrelevance. A new world begins to emerge, not because it was imposed, but because it was chosen. And now, here we are, at the edge of this cosmic rift, at the twilight between two Earths, one fading into the dense gravity of forgetting, the other rising like a morning star, luminous with memory. What was once hidden has now been spoken. What once lingered on the fringe of prophecy is now unfolding in the mirror of your life. Humanity is splitting not as a punishment, but as a harvest. Not as a reckoning, but as a return. And the prophecy of Nostradamus was not a decree of doom, but a whispered reminder that within each soul lies a choice far more powerful than empires, technologies, or systems. The choice to awaken or to sleep. You see, the split is not something that happens to you. It is something you become. The awakened earth, the golden thread of remembrance woven through space and time, is not a place on a map. It is a state of being, a vibration, a covenant with truth. To live in this world is to become an oracle in your own right, a keeper of inner fire, a lighthouse in the storm. It is to stop waiting for saviors, systems, or signs, and to remember that the doorway to the real world has always been within you. But let us not romanticize the path ahead. To walk as one of the awakened is not to float above suffering or bypass the messiness of this human incarnation. It is to meet life in all its chaos, contradiction, and beauty with sacred eyes. It is to grieve when others forget, to forgive when old identities crumble, to keep choosing presence even when it hurts, and to realize that the pain of awakening is not a sign of failure, but a sign that your soul is stretching beyond the skin of the old world. There will be moments when you feel torn between the two earths, one pulling you back into the sleep of habit, the other inviting you forward into the light of truth. There will be days when your frequency falters, when the noise of the world seduces you into smallness. But even in those moments, something inside you will remain untouched, a flicker of knowing, a whisper that says, "You were born for this. You were born for this time, for this turning of the age, for this sacred crossroads, for this moment when the veil thins and the soul remembers." And so the invitation is simple but absolute. Choose, not with panic, not with pressure, but with presence. Choose the thoughts that build your reality. Choose the relationships that mirror your truth. Choose the practices that cleanse your perception. Choose the silence that sharpens your intuition. Choose the vision that you will carry through the storm. Every day, you are casting a vote for the world you wish to inhabit, not with ballots, but with breath, not with slogans, but with soul. And your vote matters more than you know. For as you awaken, you ripple. As you remember, others begin to remember. You become the prophecy fulfilled not in some distant future, but in this sacred moment, this sacred breath. You see, Nostradamus was not only warning us of what might come, he was echoing what already lives within us, the knowing that we are not here to survive the collapse of one world, but to midwife the birth of another. And the ones who hold the light steady in the darkness are not the ones with the loudest voices, but the deepest hearts. So let your heart break open if it must. Let it bleed for the forgotten. Let it tremble as it remembers the cost of forgetting. But do not let it close. Not now. Not when the threshold is here. Not when you carry the codes of the new earth in your very breath. You are not alone in this. Across the planet, the awakened are rising quietly, steadily, without spectacle. Their eyes speak the same language. Their dreams echo the same symbols. They may not have met in body, but they are gathering in spirit. And every time one of them chooses love over fear, presence over distraction, devotion over doubt, the frequency shifts. And so I leave you with this. You are the pivot point, the prophecy, the presence. You are the remembrance made flesh. You are the proof that humanity has not forgotten. Not entirely, not irreversibly. The question is not, will the world awaken? The question is, will you? Will you hold the line when the illusion tempts you? Will you rise from the ashes of your old self? Will you become the world you wish to live in? If the answer is yes, then welcome. You are already walking the path of the remembered. You are already weaving the earth that Nostradamus glimpsed through the veil. You are already fulfilling the dreams seeded long before your birth. And as this video comes to a close, the journey only begins. If this message has stirred something within you, if it has reminded you of what you came here to remember, I invite you to walk further with us. Like this video to anchor its frequency into the field. Share your reflections in the comments below, subscribe for deeper transmissions, and pass this message on to others, not with force, but with love, with the knowing that the right ones will feel the call. For the earth is splitting, and you, beautiful soul, are the bridge. The forgotten will forget, the awakened will remember, and in between them stands the choice, made new, in every breath. Welcome home.